You are listening to the IndyCar Report with Elijah Poe. Every week on the Central Indiana Sports Report. And about halfway through, Elijah and I were joined by Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader sports editor Michelle Garmon as we made our predictions for the race in Portland this weekend. Yeah, just a reminder, Elijah, there is an IndyCar season still going on.
Yeah, it feels
been so long. Been so long, I almost forgot.
Yeah, it feels like this off week or I should say off weeks, part of this little summer break here has been so long, but I'm sure we'll be kicking ourselves when we have 5 races here to close out the month of August. It's just going to be absolutely awesome, the stretch we have here, and have some news actually came out yesterday that IndyCar is headed back to Phoenix again to do a doubleheader with NASCAR.
So got a little bit left to go in this season, already looking ahead to next year. But there is a lot to talk about besides just the racing. Lots of news this week. So much going on, Elijah. What's number one to you?
I think number one has to be just how impressed Alexander Rossi and Alex Palou were by the little test session they had for the new IR28, the new Indy car that's coming in 2028. You know, we had lap times that were pretty similar to what these cars are running now, and these cars were not pushing very fast at all. They're being very careful with the tires and obviously being very careful with the car in general. And I just got to say, that thing looks like a beast on track.
You probably don't want to put the prototype into the wall, right?
That's probably why they picked Rossi and Palou.
Probably. They look bigger. Is it me, or do they just look bigger on the track?
So they are a little bit wider, and that's actually for safety. Rossi was going on saying how there was more room within the cockpit, so teams can put more added padding, and there's also going to be extra pads down by the feet, which will eliminate some of those injuries that Rossi and Newgarden had this year, where they're having lower leg injuries due to contact. So it's really just for more padding. It can also fit bigger drivers as well. Graham Rahal is probably the biggest one in the series. So he'll have a little bit more room, a little bit more cushion. And overall, I think the wideness of it is just because of all the safety abilities. And I think Palou went on record saying somebody from IndyCar told him it was around 10 times safer, which is almost unfathomable to think of because these cars are really, really safe as they are.
Yeah, in IndyCars, the legs have always really been exposed, and that's not something that you can really do much about. Any safety there is obviously welcome. Also, going along with it looking bigger, I think the wings look bigger as well.
Yeah, they do look pretty bulky and wide. And I'll be interested to see just how all of that changes. You know, we've got another couple years before this car actually gets thrown into some competition. And I think as these tests kind of evolve after the next rounds and obviously the next 2 years of testing, I think this car could change a lot. But I will say both Palou and Rossi said for a first-time car, there were really no mechanical issues.
Wow.
There were no real major issues. You know, this thing is brand spanking new out of the box, and I think both of them were really high on this car, and what a great starting point to have. The last thing you want is a brand new car come out and it looks like just a bag of nothing, but I'm pretty impressed by what IndyCar and Dallara has delivered, and can't wait to see what it ends up looking like here in a couple of years on track and competition.
Yeah, it's a good-looking machine. I'm looking forward to seeing all the different liveries on it and all of that.
Yeah, and I think it's going to do. I think it is going to perform how they want to by setting those track records. I think especially Indianapolis. I know they're on the road course, but for them to be running just maybe a few tenths off race pace of this year, and it just being the shakedown for the car and really kind of just setting it up, I think is so promising. They're running Firestone tires that weren't really built for this car as well. You know, Firestone has put a lot of work into creating these tires for the certain IndyCar Dallara chassis that they're running now. And I think when Firestone's also able to kind of look at these tires and design them for that car, I think you're just going to see even better and better numbers as we go along.
My one worry, of course, as I've been saying all along, is what it does to the competition. And we'll see. It's just that the competition with this chassis, the last, 14 years has been really good. And I hate to see that go away.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big question mark. It really is. I think the technology is definitely needed, but man, from an entertainment standpoint, IndyCar really has it down right now. And I kind of talked about it at the beginning here, but It's been confirmed that NASCAR and IndyCar are going to share a Phoenix weekend yet again here in 2027, which I think is just great for IndyCar. You look at the fan they had at Phoenix this year, and I bet it's going to be even bigger than it was.
So that means right now, Elijah, we know we have St. Petersburg, Phoenix, Arlington, the two Indy races. We assume almost every race will be back next year. So any additions would be, DC will not be back next year as far as we know, but the schedule's starting to take some shape, and Phoenix being part of it is a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's a must. I think we've said so many times how IndyCar really needs to be going to these short ovals, and Phoenix is honestly one of the best ones that IndyCar can go to. And we saw this race this year, and I think it was pretty entertaining. And I'll be interested to see how they can pull off the NASCAR and IndyCar doubleheader again, because I know now that Xfinity is going to be there as well, or should I say O'Reilly Auto Parts Series or whatever it is now. But I know it's technically going to be a triple header, so I'm pretty excited to see how they play that out. And I think IndyCar is probably going to race on that Saturday again, but maybe move them to Sunday.
And that Phoenix is really vital, not just because it's a great race, all the tradition, but also because you can run it any time of year. And that is a big deal. And you get races like Homestead backs because of that kind of thing too. Anytime you can get an oval in a warm weather climate, you got to take it. And Phoenix is perfect for that.
I'm glad they're continuing to go there and not just kind of dropping it after a couple of years like they did with Iowa out here. But yeah, IndyCar needs to be on more ovals. And I think this calendar for this next upcoming year has more opportunities to stem out, maybe in Latin America, maybe go down to Brazil. They better be going to Mexico. So I think the schedule overall for next season is going to be super, super interesting.
Mexico, Mexico, Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
They should have two races in Mexico. It's so far apart from each other. It would be like having one in Dallas and Los Angeles. And in back-to-back weekends, you could just do two races, and it's not like you're going to be attracting the same crowd. And
yeah,
I think
it needs to happen.
It would be a really cool leg early in the season to do that.
IndyCar needs to figure that out, and I think all signs are pointing to that happening. It's just a kind of matter of when, and I think the popularity of the sport's at right now, it kind of needs to happen now.
Yeah, Mexico's a big market. We know going all the way back to the 80s that they love IndyCar, when it's in front of them. And with Pato being the star that he is, it's just a must that Mexico becomes part of the overall picture of IndyCar.
I know I brought it up before the podcast, got some interesting response out of you, but talking about interesting people coming back to IndyCar, might see Colton Herta back in IndyCar, as reports have come out today that Cadillac is looking for possibly a new driver instead of Colton for their Formula One program, which would mean Colton Herta might return to that 28 seat at Andretti Racing.
Well, that is very interesting. Obviously, he's a talent that you want to have in your series. I thought it was kind of cool that he was getting a chance in F1. If he's back in IndyCar, as long as that's where his attention is now going forward, he's obviously a welcome addition to the series.
And I honestly think he needs to be back in IndyCar. I get he wanted to go over in Formula One and try it out, but you look how great this series is, and I think without him, he's a really talented driver, and I think he's an IndyCar name that should have stayed in IndyCar. You can't hate on him for going to kind of chase his dream in Formula One, but IndyCar is going to be very lucky to have him back, and I think that makes it pretty interesting for Marcus Ericsson, who's currently at Andretti right now. We're going to see kind of how this plays out in the next coming months, but silly season I'm sure is going to ramp up here pretty soon as the season winds down here in the last month and a half of the season.
I probably shouldn't say this because I like to keep the IndyCar report positive, but Marcus Ericsson is clearly one of the 10 most talented drivers in the series. You know how I feel about these Scandinavians. They're my favorites. But that guy just has no personality. He just is not. He's an Indy 500 winner, and I forget about him on certain weekends. I have a hard time loving Marcus Ericsson being out front, and I'm really I shouldn't have said that, Elijah.
No, I don't think you're really wrong. I think it's easy to forget that he is an Indianapolis 500 winner, just because he's just had a weird career, bounced around, went to Chip Ganassi, obviously won the 500 there, is now at Andretti and not really having any loud seasons where he's out in front or winning races. Obviously, we know he was super close. Obviously ran really well in St. Louis, but just hasn't had the results to kind of speak for the name he is. And I have to agree with you. I think he is an incredible talent.
And when he wins, it's kind of boring. I don't know. Sorry. But he is, without question, especially at Indy, just such a factor every year. And every year you look up and, hey, there's that guy, that Swedish guy I keep forgetting about.
Yeah, and I think for that reason, he'll be somewhere in IndyCar. If it's at Andretti, if it's somewhere else, I think you can still expect him to be on a team, no doubt.
Elijah, I should have just kept my mouth shut, like was my instinct. We just heard from Michelle Garmon. She'll be joining us here in a minute to make her prediction for Portland this weekend. Before we do, we have a little bit more news, including the D.C. race going to 250 miles.
I saw that. I'm going to be interested to see how that race plays out because it's not a very long track, so that is going to be a lot of laps.
It's going to be a lot of turns. A lot of turns.
Better hope there's some good, entertaining racing, because if not, that could be quite the long watch, honestly.
Yeah, with the way they've made it where the strategies are different and the tire strategy, the fuel strategies, I'm sure there will be a lot of interesting stuff going on, but that's right. And we're now joined by Tipton Tribune and Elwood call leader, sports editor Michelle Garmon, her thoughts on what's going to be a very long DC race with a lot of turns.
When I saw that they increased it, I thought that makes that race even more intriguing and exciting, especially since it's going to be a brand new course and a street course through DC. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I would think that experienced teams might have a slight edge just because I'm sure they'll find certain similarities to some of the turns of other courses they've run in the past, whether it's been currently or an old course or something that somebody has had to plan strategy for. So, I think Ganassi and Penske, Andretti, those guys that have been around for a long time might do better adjusting for that length as opposed to the smaller race teams.
That's a good point I hadn't thought of.
No matter what, how the race plays out, I think it's going to be such a cool event, and I think we honestly have a pretty good race lead in here with Portland here this weekend, and then we really hit the stride in August going to a brand new race in Markham and then heading to Milwaukee as well. So it's going to be such a pivotal time for IndyCar to just absolutely nail these races and make sure you always want to make sure they're entertaining, but even more so with this crucial stretch.
Let's make our predictions right after this break. All right, guys, let's make our predictions for this weekend at Portland. Again, it's been 3 weeks since the last race, and obviously Alex Palou on his way to his 4th consecutive IndyCar championship. Just incredible. But we're going to talk about Portland this weekend. The defending champion, Will Power, his last win with Penske last year, and he beat Christian Lundgaard and Alex Palou, and it seems to me that the favorites going into this weekend, Elijah, are going to be Ganassi and Arrow McLaren, with Andretti and Penske a level below.
I think it's all the usuals. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lundgaard in victory lane, honestly. We know how good he is on these road courses, and he was really competitive with chasing down Will Power last year. I honestly think Will Power, knowing this is a track he's won at before, obviously winning this last year, he needs a defining race with Andretti this year. He doesn't maybe have to have a couple wins, but I would argue to say that he needs at least one win before this season closes out for at least me to determine it as a successful season. And I think this could be an opportunity for him. And I'm never going to discredit Alex Palou because he's for sure a contender.
I believe if Palou wins this weekend, I already think he's won his fourth. But I think if he wins this way, he's kind of puts the stamp on this fourth straight championship. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lundgaard win either. He's been very good on some of these courses. He's got 2 road wins. He's had a good season that way. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Who do you think, Elijah, who do you think is going to be the best Penske out there?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I think the Penskes are kind of a question mark going into this. If I were to bet, I would put David Malukas, but then again, I feel like this is a course that almost favors Scott McLaughlin the way he drives. So I think it's either between Scotty Mack or David Malukas. I just don't think Newgarden is still fully healed. It'll be interesting to see those reports as they kind of have practice here on Friday and Saturday. If he is fully healed, I think Newgarden could make maybe just a late season push with a couple ovals left on the circuit. It's going to be interesting to see the Penske's in general, just because I don't think this is really a track that is super strong suited to them, even though Will Power did win here last year.
I think this is Palou's weekend. I think we might finally get to see what we've been waiting for a long time, and that's an Alex Palou Pato Award battle for a win. That would be cool. We used to see it a lot, and it's been a long time since we've seen one of those, and that's going to be my prediction, Palou, Pato. And as far as dark horses, it's really kind of hard to find one this weekend. It just feels like it's going to be a weekend of favorites. But I got to say, I don't think in all the time we've done this, Elijah, I've ever picked Rinus VeeKay, and he's just proved me wrong over and over and over. So I'm going to say Rinus VeeKay is going to have another top 7 finish.
He would be one of my dark horses. Although I know it's a Chevy and I'm not so sure, but I would also say Alexander Rossi has been improving. And if his foot is close to healthy, I mean, he's another guy to just keep your eye on, just because he's contended in some. He's had some bad luck this year. And although I personally don't really care for the driver, who knows what Santino's going to do?
I think for my top 3, I'm probably going to go Lundgaard first, Palou second, and I do like Pato at third. I kind of agree with Greg. I think it could be Pato's week if he's able to kind of capitalize. But man, I think Lundgaard is probably coming out here pretty pissed, knowing that he's out of the seat at McLaren. And for my dark horse, I'm going to go with Mick Schumacher. Obviously coming off of a top 10 3 weeks ago, I think it would be awesome to see him back in the top 10. And I think if he's able to stack a couple of top 10s, maybe a top 5 to close out this season, we could probably say the season was a success if he's able to do that in these last 5 races.
Yeah, that's true, except Schumacher's best performances have really surprisingly kind of come on ovals, or not really the street or road courses this year.
Which is why I'm hoping he can turn it around. It's going to be interesting to see what RLL brings. I feel like it's kind of a crapshoot anytime you get them, really at any track any car goes to. But I think it would be good for him to maybe get a dark horse top 10.
Well, I'll give you one more dark horse. Scott Dixon.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's changing teams and everything, but the guy seems to win at least one race every year. I don't think you can count him out, especially because he's got Ganassi cars. So he would be one of my dark horses.
That's a great one.
And I think it's a big close to the season for Louis Foster and Caio Collet to see what they can do, because they've shown a lot of promise. So I'll be keeping my eyes on those guys too.
Well, the first practice at Portland is going to be Friday, August 7th at 5:30 p.m. Qualifying is going to be on Saturday, August 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's a late qualifying for IndyCar. And the race, we have the green flag around 4 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, August 9th. Should be an absolute great weekend of IndyCar racing. Portland's one of, I would say, the few really interesting tracks they go to. And can't wait to see how it plays out.
Portland is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. This is going to be interesting to see how the ones after that play out, because now you start traveling. You're going cross country to get out there, but you've had enough. You're not coming off a race last weekend, so you've been able to take your time to get out there. Now these guys are going to have to get their equipment packed, cars, trailer, whatever, and then they got to book it back across the country. And in summertime, that's terrible with all the road construction.
Thanks, everybody. Elijah, Indiana misses you. You need to get back as soon as possible.
That's for sure. I'll be back eventually.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We will be back on Sunday with a recap of the race in Portland. And next week again with the IndyCar Report every week with Elijah Poe and sometimes other guests. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.